In this episode, we're going to talk about how to make your podcast guests love you. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for today's episode of Interview Connections TV. I am filming this today on the 19th, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, coming off of my birthday weekend, so thank you everyone who wished me a happy birthday. Had a great time going up to Boston with my husband, had 24 hours kid-free, so it was absolutely lovely. In today's episode, I'm going to be giving some tips on how to get your podcast guests to absolutely love you. Over the past year and a half, Interview Connections has been booking great podcast guests for our clients, and we've really perfected this process of finding guests, booking them, scheduling them, and just coordinating everything. And on several occasions, guests come to us and say, wow, you've made the process so easy. This was so easy to work with you. Thank you so much. So I want to give you some tips on how we do things so you can implement some best practices within your podcast. Number one, I recommend that when you schedule a guest, you use an online scheduler. Now, very popular post is schedule once or time trade. What should I use? I love Schedule Once because it has many different levels depending on what you need for it in your business. So you can also customize your booking form. So when you send your guest your online scheduler, they can fill out their name, their Skype name. They can even put their headshot and bio right there in the booking form, so you have all the information you need right away. You don't have to be going back and saying, please send me this information. Oh, I need your Skype name. Oh, I need this. Oh, I need that. You can also set it so they get all of your information, like the information about your podcast, your Skype name right there on the booking form. So that's tip number one, use an online scheduler. Tip number two is to make sure that you're confirming the recording the day before the interview. Now, the cool thing about online schedulers is they will send automatic confirmations at any time you choose. So you can set it to have Schedule One send confirmation the day before. So those are great, but I definitely recommend writing up a confirmation email that you or an assistant or Interview Connections sends to your guest. Something that says, how the interview is going to be recorded through Skype, who's going to call who. That's a big thing that a lot of people ask is the host going to call me? Do I need to call them? In that confirmation email, make sure that you say, we have your Skype name as this, and the host Skype name is this, just so everyone's on the same page. And when we send a confirmation email for Interview Connections, we are copying the host and sending it to the guest. So all parties involved are getting that information. We're all getting on the same page. And third, when the interview goes live, send your guest an email giving them all of the links they need to promote. Give them a link to the podcast on iTunes, give them a link to the podcast on Stitcher, give them a link to their blog post where they can find the show notes and their podcast interview on your website, and use click2tweet.com to write a special tweet that they can just post on Twitter. So we usually write these for our clients and send it to the guests. It says something like, I was featured on the Roads to Success podcast with Jess Rhodes. Here's a link. And we just make that tweet for them. So as easy as just one click, they can be promoting the podcast. And then also send them a graphic, something that they can use on social media, and just thank them so much for being on your show. I mean, that's the bare minimum of what you need to be doing with your guests. If you're doing way more than that, you might be overwhelming them and making the process really difficult. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like it and comment below. Share it if you're watching this on Facebook, or retweet it on Twitter. If you want to learn about how Interview Connections can help make this whole process really easy and take over all the logistics with your guest, go to interviewconnections.com. And if you want more tips on how to manage podcast interviews for your show, go to interviewconnections.com/a-la-carte and pick up my ebook. It's only $4.97. You can get it right through my website. It gives tons of tips on how to find, book, and coordinate guest interviews for your show. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful, productive week, and I'll talk to you next Tuesday.